things out.
Hear anybody good. I can't hear you, I find this equals space, yeah, so I can hear my son. Yeah, I can't hear anybody else. I can't hear my mom, but that's okay.
I can't either.
I was waiting for it. I knew it was coming. Selective, very selective.
So that what my board and cane will look like next summer.
Oh, you're gonna make it bigger.
No, we're gonna put flowers in it. So,
Town soup.
Nice.
What determines the max number of units you can live in?
Now that you think about it, they are all dead. Jesus, everyone. Great, don't you please?
Yeah, it's well, no, because I don't know what's it goes
I
back
always
to
this
this,
of,
what is
all
this
the
for?
stuff. Senior ed, right?
It goes back to the issue.
The guy who lives at the end of the road there.
6 months, yeah.
If you come down even chance, not on even
Once,
chance.
much.
Wait.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I didn't run on the agenda, but I
Okay, no problem.
I'll call you, say for.
The recording has started, David.
All right,
Good to go.
so this is the Enfield Planning Board. It is 6:32. February 28th, 2024. We are in the Enfield Public Works Conference Room. And we have several people participating online via Zoom or Teams, whatever we're using. This meeting is being recorded and will be available on the Enfield YouTube channel. Members of the audience, has everybody had an opportunity to sign in? Okay. And people online, would like to have you identify yourselves, starting with Carrie and Carl. You unmute. There we go.
There, we're off mute. Yes, Carl and Carrie Lovejoy. We live at 35 Caleb Dyer Lane in Enfield.
All right. And on our screen below you, we have the Drummonds, Lisa and Dick.
Lisa and Dick Drummond, we're here and we live on 93 Chosenvale Lane, which is directly across from Tardif Hall.
Okay, thank you.
It's the A.
It's the A.
ASS, is that?
Alf, that's Linda. Yeah,
Oh, that's Linda, okay.
yeah, let him in. Let her in.
She's in, just to
Okay.
have the camera on.
Linda, would you unmute and tell us that you're here?
Oh, sorry, this is not Linda. This is April DeGoma. I'm on 736 Shaker Hill Road.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I confused you with one of our members. So board members present, starting from my left.
Eric Russell.
Dan Kiley.
I'm David Frack.
Bill Vermeer.
Brad Rich. Tim Jennings.
Kurt Carhart.
Staff members
Bob Taylor.
Whitney Banker.
and Jim.
Photographer.
And Bob.
Okay, let's see, we are missing Linda, so I will ask Kurt to be elevated for the hearings,
Okay.
and you will have an opportunity to vote
Okay.
on anything that comes before us. First on our agenda, we have public comments. If anybody is here for any subject that is not on the agenda, now is your time to speak. Hearing none, we will go on to public hearings. First one is land use case number P 24-02-03. Cameron and Sarah Roberts are seeking minor subdivision approval to create two lots from the one they own at 804 Shaker Hill Road, map 8, lot 1. Subject parcel is 11.66 acres total. And this request is to create one lot of 10.47 acres and another of 1.19 respectively. Chris Rollins of Rollins Surveys is representing the Roberts in this manner. Chris, how are you?
Doing great.
Good.
This is not Chris.
Yeah, I'm
I
not.
know you're not.
I was gonna say,
I'll answer to anything though.
Okay,
Chris did the survey.
Yeah.
okay, and you are,
I am Cameron Roberts. I'm the owner of the property.
okay. So tell us what you want to do.
We are looking to return that piece of property back to two separate parcels. I believe back in 2016, 2017, it was there. We currently reside in the home that's on the 1.19 acres. And we are attempting to start a small little hobby farm there by subdividing that and building a new home there and then making our residence there.
Okay,
And I'll just say in your packet that I emailed to you guys, and then we've got copies if you needed to see it. There is a zoning variance that was granted by the ZBA last year for creation of a lot less than 3 acres, as this is in the R3 zone.
which is the way it was
Right.
originally before you combined them.
We didn't combine them, the previous owners.
Previous
combined,
owners.
Yes.
I believe this is
Yeah.
legacy of the farmer. right?
That's Steve
Steve
Fold.
Fold,
Right,
Blue Ox Farm.
okay. We'll open it up to questions from board members.
Looks straightforward to me.
Yeah, me too. Don't see any issues.
Okay. Kurt,
Just more for the surveyor, who I guess is not here tonight. The printer might have been a bit off. On the bar scale, it's off. Well, the full scale, it's 1 inch to 60 feet, and the bar scale says, full length 180, and I'm measuring like 180, 190. And then the same happens when you do the measured distance on the Mets and bounds. You can check it yourself in case my math is wrong, or I'm reading this wrong.
we'll take your measurement, and note it in the record.
Yeah.
Should there ever be any issue, having been in the large format printing business. Sometimes it's more of an art than a science, and while they probably shouldn't be this far off, sometimes they are.
Yeah, and like, the other measurements, are sort of like the same distance off, so I think it was just a scaling issue
Yeah.
that happens.
Mhm.
But on the Mylar, it should be corrected. Because, it's great when you have the numbers, but when you're trying to do a measurement up to say something that's just shown on the plats
Yeah,
to scale, the numbers are wrong.
Mylar tends to be much more stable than paper,
Mhm.
and
that's where
that
you
may
have to
be
use
part of the
more-
issue.
Yeah, but you have to convert it, you shouldn't have to be doing that. Say
Okay.
there's a well.
Could we not get hung up on this technical issue,
Yeah,
please?
yeah.
We have a lot of work to do tonight. Members of the audience and members on video, are there any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. will
Sorry, I have a
close-
question. I'm sorry. I have-
Question. Okay,
Hi,
who is
this is-
asking, please?
Yes, this is April DeGoma. I'm next door, 736 Shaker Hill Road. I just want to double check. So it'll still be residential. The zoning will still say is it residential. Is this the case?
Yes,
dis-
there's no change in the zoning.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for asking. Any other questions from the public or comments? Okay, public hearing is closed. Board members, do I have a motion to put this on the table and discuss it?
So moved.
Second,
Motion made by Brad and seconded by Dan. is there any further discussion on the application? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to accept the plan as submitted.
I make a motion, we approve the subdivision as submitted.
Second.
Motion made by Dan, seconded by Brad. Linda is not with us, so we don't have to do a roll call. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Passed unanimously.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
I would, take Kurt's comments about the scale to heart and make sure that when the Mylar is printed.
Yep.
That, Chris or whoever does the printing, checks to make sure that the scale is in fact accurate with a ruler.
I'll let him know and
Yeah.
double check that and make sure
Okay,
I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
you got it.
Right.
That's what we're
Thank
all
you very
about.
much.
All right, thank you for coming in.
All right, thanks.
Next, we have, P 24-02-4. Cardiff Hall at Shaker Village LLC has applied for major site plan review approval to convert a portion of their building at 86 Chosen Vale Lane, map 10, lot 75A8 into 4 residential apartments. The subject property is 1.01 acres and is located within the R1 Rural Residential District. Property is owned by Tardif Hall at Shaker Village LLC. Who is presenting for Tardif Hall?
Christopher Ross, and I was working with Pathways Consulting on the plans that were submitted.
Okay. Before you get into your presentation, I have a question, which is a point of clarification. On your application, the written thing, it is stated that you wish to convert the current property into a residential multifamily. In the warning that I just read, it says a portion of the property. Can you explain which it is or clarify which it is?
Absolutely. The west end of the building, so that on this set of drawings, in the drawings that you have, is the page left side of the building. And it's approximately 1,900 square feet per floor. A total of 4 units, 2 units per floor, and yeah, left side of the building. Approximately from the midpoint backward.
Okay, so the right side of the building will maintain its commercial use?
That's correct.
That's currently.
Yeah, that's correct. It's commercial use on 2 floors. The basement is a habitable basement and it's storage.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Should we ask them to modify their application to reflect that only part of the building is going to be converted to residential? Dan, what do you think?
Well, we can make it out if they have to change it, what do we call it? A condition. We could make it a condition.
Let's do that then.
I think that would be easier.
Okay, I'm into that. All right, so go ahead with your presentation.
In the proposal here, we've supplied a site plan. There's minor changes to the site work. The first change that I'll elaborate on is at the west end of the building will be a new entry point that will serve the 4 residential units. The center entrance present will maintain its function for the business on the east side of the building. The next thing I'll discuss is parking. The edges of the current parking lot and areas will be crisp or hardened up, and there'll be measured parking spots and such designated. The east end of the building will have spots for the business function. The far eastern edge across Chosen Vale will have 8 residential spots. We're providing 2 per unit. And then the larger double row lot will also be maintaining its current business function, as well as service business parking on the north side of the building and a loading dock on the northwest side of the building. Those are existing functions. And well, the northwest side is also trash. So most of the parking will maintain the same. The big difference is the 8 residential spots to the southeast of the building.
Okay.
Those are the site plan changes that are proposed. We're also going to be with hardening up some of the edges as elaborated on sheet 2. We will be adding some full cutoff lighting that was submitted with the application. I don't believe it's on your big prints. Yeah. But that'll be some new lighting that goes at the entry points. There'll be some lighting in the parking areas, particularly for the residents. And there'll be additional new plantings to just call better attention to the entries and exit points to create a better site flow. There is a lot of existing tree cover to the south, on the south property line, southeast of the building, but along the south property line.
North as well.
Yeah, the north side also has, as Jay said, the north side has some trees as well. But you can see on the site plan, loam, seed, and mulch called out, and new deciduous trees throughout to provide, better cover and crisp up the look of the building on the outside.
Anything else?
That probably covers.
I would just add, this is Jay.
Oh, yes.
Jay Boucher is the business owner. Him and his son operate Defiance Electric.
Mhm.
And you guys may or may not realize that this location previously also hosted a company called RCS, which was quite significant. How many employees would you say they had at one time?
Like 50.
They had 50
Yeah.
employees
Yeah.
approximately.
Mhm.
It was a serious concern.
Mhm.
And so obviously, I would actually argue the intensity of the use may be going down.
Oh, no question about it.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
the problem. That's the reason why. I didn't
Right.
really want to become a landlord by any means, but when the major tenant of the building decided to retire and leave,
Right.
what happened with COVID, like has happened with a lot of other commercial, people just stopped coming to the office, and they had 8,700 square feet of rental space that 3 or 4 people come into instead of 50. And when their lease was up the end of December, they gave me fair notice in June of last year that they were leaving. And so I hired McLaury to try and sell it as commercial space, because I never intended to be a residential landlord, because it's basically been an owner occupied building for the last 25 years.
Mhm.
And no, not one taker. So it was a rude awakening that we had to do something. And everybody I talked to, banks, real estate people, said, there's a big need for residential. There'd be a great space, city water, city sewer, right in the middle of the village, so that's why we embarked on what we're embarking on now.
Yeah, that's good. I'm curious about the history a little bit. It is an R1 residential? And at what point did the building go to commercial use? Was that, was it
I've been
before
involved in
zoning?
that when the developers, which my partner in the bill is Kevin O'Reilly, he was one of the original investors, developers of Shaker Village. We became the electrical contractor there in like 1986. So that building at the time was vacant. It was built as science labs for La Salette. And so they offered me an office space and I grabbed the corner office that I still have. And then it just developed as commercial over time. It's always been commercial since I moved in, 46 years, 48 years ago, whatever it was. So
So I think we could safely say that the commercial use is grandfathered.
I would say so. The building's a bomb shelter. I mean, it's a steel frame, poured concrete slabs, block walls with brick outside of that. And then when they bought it, it didn't really look like it belonged in the Shaker Village. So what they did was they replaced the windows, the Anderson windows. They put a pitched roof on it to match the Shaker roof lines. And then put blue board insulation and clapboards on the outside, so it looked like it belongs. And that's really where it is today.
Yeah.
What's the history on the name?
I don't really, I think it was called Tardif when we moved in, wasn't it? I think the Shakers, not Shakers, but the La Salette named it Tardif. Yeah, I think it's the La Salette named it Tardif, so.
Okay.
Don't need to change it.
And adjacent right to the north, is that the old dairy? Is that the?
The laundry dairy building, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct.
And then a few years ago, we just changed the division of the property because we used to own the property that went right in front of Dick and Lisa's place, which was not the best for them because that was our parking area and they owned some land that was more east of our. So we ended up doing a land swap with them to give them the privacy of the land in front of their house and the lot around where I believe they're building a house now. And we took the land that was basically due east of our, and just put it basically in a parking lot in. So we got plenty of parking because like I said, it was 40, 50 people there, not for RCS, not counting Defiance Electric.
Right.
So there's,
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Board members, any questions? Kurt?
Just minor one, really. I didn't really see a symbol map on the plans. Like, just explaining what the little symbol, like the lights, I mean, it's marked area light on one of them, but typically there's a little bar or a little scale, bar thing, XL, I don't know which proper name, but I'm drawing a blank on the proper name.
Simple list.
Yeah. Just explaining what everything is and what the different lines mean. Type of thing.
Well, my intention, quite honestly, as an electrical contractor, is to work with Dick, and Drummond and the surrounding neighbors to make sure that whatever we do for lighting is compatible with them. Because we know it's, a lot less people are gonna be going in and out of that building now, but we still want to make sure the lighting is.
Yeah,
Sure.
town regs are require full cutoff, and so,
Absolutely,
I saw your plans, indicated that.
Is the building, a lot, is it part of any of the homeowners associations here?
We're part of the lowest Shaker Village Association, yeah. Because we're on the municipal water supply with them.
And I assume compliance with whatever their regulations are in terms of this, what you're
Yeah.
proposing to do.
Yeah.
How large are the housing units gonna be, number of
About
bedrooms?
900 square feet,
So 2 bedrooms each?
2 bedroom, 2 bath, yeah. And we're doing them in a Shaker style, we're trying to keep the Shaker theme. We're replacing the windows in the apartment areas so they have true divided light as opposed to just the open panes that they are now. We're doing Shaker doors, Shaker themed cabinets and stuff, and we just want to keep it in the tradition of the village.
Nice.
And it'll have an energy upgrade too. That was noted on our application as well. So the building will see some improvements on the insulation values and the
And,
U factors and other
Yeah.
things such as that.
they've been working with, our building inspector for, consult. I think it'll be sprinkled.
Oh, yeah. that's
Okay,
right.
that was gonna be my question, is the
Yeah,
building gonna be
it's gonna be
sprinkled?
sprinkled. We're putting, electric heat pumps in every unit.
Okay.
So it's, we're doing as much as we can to make it energy efficient.
Sounds like the way to go.
It is the way to go, no question
Yeah,
about it.
at this point,
I mean, as an owner too, I mean,
Rental
they're all
properties.
self-contained now. They're heating and air conditioning and, on their own. Electric, with electric, backup for the heat pump, so when they get down below their cutoff temperature, they'll be able to have full heat.
Awesome.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
There's more question for Rob, actually. So do we need to do anything regarding, water and sewer hookup fees, or is that all handled through the building inspection /
So
permitting process?
they'll work with Jim on the public works.
Yeah.
So it's, when he says municipal, it's actually the Shaker
Yeah, no, but
water
the sewer then.
sewer, yeah. he'll-
I just wanna make sure we don't have to do anything. I don't think we do.
Yeah.
No,
That's just being handled through
DPW.
building permits.
So the water is through the shaker, but the sewer is.
Sewer is empty.
The town.
Yep.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, that being on the municipal water and sewer supply, it makes it's a big advantage for us for that.
sure. Board members, any more questions or comments? Members of the public? Yes, ma'am. Could you identify yourself, please?
And I'd like to say that I've worked with Defiance Electric. They were super easy to work with. As I'm sure all of you know, and I bet a bunch of you have worked with them as well. But I really like them as a company, and they've demonstrated their commitment to the community and being fair partners. And I'd also echo the need for housing in this area, and so I would support their proposal.
Thank you.
Okay. Catherine, did you sign in on the clipboard?
I did.
You did, okay. Now we'll go to the people online. Drummonds, okay, Lovejoy, do you have a comment or question?
Yeah, my only question is, my main question is that the traffic between Chosen Vale and Caleb Dyer, right now there's, who would be somebody that could put up a yield or stop sign there? We've gotten used to having very little traffic in and out of there other than early in the morning and when Defiance Electric is leaving, but I have almost been T-boned a couple of times with people coming flying out of Chosen Vale when you're going the other way, and I'm not sure who has the right of way. So I'm wondering.
If that's within the development, I would suggest that the homeowners association has
Well-
the authority.
That section of Chosen Vale, I'm not sure is part of the homeowners.
Coincidentally, we had a meeting, the homeowners.
Hang on, can we have one person talking at a time? Which would be you?
Okay, we had a meeting 2 days ago with, the grounds committee, and they talked about stop signs. And they're going to ask you homeowners where you want them, and we'll put them up. That's you guys, basically.
I'm part of that grounds committee, so I was aware of that. Yeah.
Well, it was Penny and,
Deborah.
Penny and Debbie and, Reed.
Yeah.
So she's gonna come up with a sign plan and present it, and that's what we'll do.
And that's because it's a private
We
association.
basically will pay
private
for it.
roads.
Yeah.
You guys could make it a condition of your approval. if you Wanted to, though, I think, could you?
I don't think so.
I don't think we wanna get into
Not
regular
our
traffic.
jurisdiction.
no,
I mean, in theory,
we can't.
the volume of traffic is dramatically less than it was.
Right.
Sure.
One other
Any other-
question, I guess. Would they be joining the association? Is that, you said they're part of Shaker Village, but will they be?
You're part of it.
Yeah, we're already part of the Lower Shaker Village Association.
So you pay dues through them? You pay the monthly? Okay.
So a resident there would, at one of your apartments wouldn't necessarily be a member of the association.
No, it's the owner of the building.
The building owner, the lot owner
Because you probably have other rentals in
is
the
the,
It's me now.
Well, I mean, and other houses are probably rented in this community, right?
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
Did I see another question? Phil?
Yeah, Phil Neely, Fire Chief, has calculation been run on the sprinkler system for the water requirements?
Calvin Murphy from Iron Works is in the process of that right now.
I'd be interested in seeing how this would.
Yeah, we have a 2-inch water supply coming into that building, so he's comfortably have plenty of water in there for the residential application. We don't really use any water in that building.
Yeah, I'm talking about the sprinkler.
Yeah, I know that.
Good. Phil, from your point of view, if the minimum flow for the sprinklers is not met, does that kill the project?
No, I think there's alternatives, and those alternatives would have to be discussed once we know all the information.
Okay, good. Any other, Lisa Drummond? I see your hand up.
Yes, good evening. Thank you so much for letting us join in. So this is Lisa and Dick Drummond, and we live 93 Chosen Vale Lane, and we are directly across from Tardif Hall. So no one is more affected by this change of commercial to residential than we are. And we totally empathize with the fact that commercial real estate is really challenging at this time to fill, and the need for residential. So we're on board with that. However, we are directly across from Tardif Hall, and the entrance of the building, Tardif Hall, is centrally located. And from what I'm gathering from the plans, another entrance is being put on the, what did you say, west or on the end of the building for the entrance. That entrance would be therefore directly across from our home. And of course, with a proper entrance, you have to have proper lighting. And that's increased light pollution for sure. I mean, if you looked outside our windows right now, every single window of that side of the building is lit up like a Christmas tree. So we're really concerned about the lighting. That's one thing. Secondly, I appreciate, what Jay is saying about RCS having 50 employees. However, we've lived here for 21 years and we have never seen 50 cars parked in that parking lot. It's way less. Understandably, we have COVID, but prior to COVID, there was never 50 cars. So when you have residential, and it could be minimum, you say 4 units with 2 bedrooms each, it could be 4+ people in each unit. So while you say in a perfect way, well, there should be less traffic, when it's commercial, it comes in the morning, it leaves in the afternoon or early evening, and it's not there on the weekend. It is empty. In residential, you come and go all day long. And so the use of the roads is, a very different thing. So obviously we're really concerned because, again, we live right across from Tardif Hall. So, if you could talk about that. And also we got a letter saying that there's lots of common space. I don't see there's lots of common space besides the parking lot and the blueprint directly around the building. I don't know what common space you're talking about. So I guess our biggest concern is, where is the entrance going to be? Why is it deviated from the central entrance? So any comments on that, please?
Chris, would you care to respond to those comments or questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So the new entry point is intended to support the division of the property between residential and business. The new entry point utilizes existing stairwells on the west end of the building and provides a more direct entry for those residential functions. It's also, in this particular instance, it provides us with an easier fire separation scheme for the building because we have to separate with a 1 hour rating business to residential. This would be an R2 use in this case. It was also, so that's the main reason for this. There would be significant difficulty in isolating staircases if we mixed the entry points. Yes, there is another staircase on the north end of the building. You can see there's a bump out on the north, right in the center of the building. There is a staircase there, but it has access to business function bathrooms and other support spaces that would be difficult to key and block off from residents. So given that, it was an easier, more straightforward, more appropriate division of the building to go with a new entry point at the west, because simply it doesn't make sense to have all sorts of complex keying and access cards and such to isolate those bathrooms. It just wouldn't be possible. So that's the reason for the new entry. The new entry point is on the southwest corner of the building. There are existing windows there. Those existing openings will support the new entry point. The next
Lighting?
question was lighting. So I think one important thing would be, and I believe, Jay's right here, but I believe that we could investigate some more intense full cutoff fixtures. There are some external entry point lights that are not full cutoff at this current time. We would absolutely entertain adjusting that and making new lights. We have submitted with our plans a wall sconce that is a full cutoff light, for instance. We have submitted a very low energy, low light level bollard to illuminate the corner of the new sidewalk. So those will be employed. You can take a look at the cut sheets if those are does the public have those cut sheets as well?
I don't think so.
Okay, we could supply the cut sheets for the wall sconces, the bollards, and the parking lot lights. So we're more than able and willing to adjust the entry point and exit point lighting. Secondly, the windows. I think it seems very reasonable to put blinds in all of the unused and used windows when we renovate. So that would be the east end of the building in the commercial space, so that if cleaning staff or other people come in and out of the building, the blinds can be down at the end of the day to block light. I think, does that seem an appropriate thing?
We have blinds in there right now within the office part of it.
So I think we should make sure that those are shut, especially in the evening, because it is quite bright. The residential part of the building, as part of the upgrade and interior, will also receive blinds.
Okay.
So that takes care of I talked about the exterior lighting and I've discussed the interior lighting. I believe right at the moment, the building's under renovation. Yes, I was there last night. I walked through the building. It got quite bright.
Yeah, it's
I was outside.
Temporary lighting.
It is bright. If during construction, we need to make some adjustments to deal with that, we're more than willing to do that because, well, I believe the concerns are legitimate. very important to the enjoyment of this whole area by all the residents, especially the Drummond's house. It looks farther away on the print. In person, this is very close. So I think we're more than willing to make some adjustments to keep the light levels down, particularly from the windows.
Okay, I think the last concern
Was
Open space.
the open space. So
and
I feel-
traffic.
yeah, so I believe the open space note in the call out of open space is the area in general.
Right.
Shaker Village, the development, has open space policies and designations as part of their whole infrastructure that was put in the 80s.
Yeah.
So that was the open space. So there's all these roads are walkable by people. There are fields, play areas. There's all sorts of things that are established in this area to provide open space. And it would be great for new folks renting here that they could enjoy that open space. So that was the call out about open space. Traffic. I don't think that there's any denying that use patterns will be slightly different. That's just the nature of this. It will be more around the clock. We could, with this work and with Jay and Tardif Associates that own the building, come up with, rules and regulations for renters. We could use the other entry point and make that a stipulation that people do not use what is Chosen Vale. Use Chosen Vale and use the farther north entry point to come to the building so that cars don't go past at the south end. We can, at the end of the day, people are going to drive where they're going to drive. There's a road there and it's public use and it already exists. So we don't have, but we could, in the rental agreements, elaborate to people that it is important that you use the farther north entry point. But that's about all I can say about.
I'm wondering, is your concern with the volume of traffic, people going in and out, or is it with perhaps headlights shining in your windows?
I think it's all the above. I mean, when it's commercial, and it has been, we've lived here for 21 years, there's really almost nothing traffic on the weekends, and people come in and then people leave, at certain times of the day. And obviously with residential, it's a whole different ball of wax. I also want to say, I'm not clear, the fields and play stations. This is not the same as Northern Village. So you're not becoming, affiliated with Northern Village, which has common space. Is that correct?
I don't, Chris, this is nothing that we would have the
Yeah.
ability to regulate anyhow. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna suggest that that's something that you would need to work out with the homeowners, landowners association.
Can I make a comment that I think? is
Absolutely.
appropriate? I don't think that we're adding 4 apartments. We're proposing to add 4 apartments. And these guys are building houses. 3, they built 1 and maybe 2 more that are actually going in now. So the impact of what we're doing is not really any more than the impact of what they're already doing by building full houses. We're just putting small apartments in, so the traffic that we're generating isn't really gonna generate any more traffic than they're generating on the projects that they're doing already, as far as building full single-family homes in the building. So
Mhm.
I don't think it's, 6 1, half a dozen.
Right, but R1 private homes are very different than, could be 16, it could be right? I mean, is there a limit? Are you gonna have in your agreements for rent, how many people are allowed in a 2-bedroom?
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, they're only 900 square feet, so they're not big units. They're pretty efficient. We're anticipating the resident market for the hospital interns, you know, where they have basically, we actually went to Hitchcock and asked them what their preference was, and whether it be traveling nurses or, you know, single bedroom units, and they basically came back to us and said the preference is for 2-bedroom units because the residents and the interns prefer to share. So, which is why we went the way that we did, and that's what we feel, because they're not gonna be cheap. I mean, it's costing us a lot of money to do this, and it's not gonna be low income rental. They're gonna be pretty high rents on these things just to support it, so.
And, for your information, in the R1 district, multifamily is a by right use. So, you know, the zoning allows it.
Yeah. And there's a need for it as well,
True.
you know.
Well, we're not talking about, Jay, you don't live directly across, I appreciate, but you don't live directly across from Tardif Hall. I guess my biggest concern is the entranceway. I know it's easier. I know it's easier for you all to not use the main entrance that's there. However, I'm just going to put up again my hand and say a whole entrance that's shifted over directly across really changes everything for us. So I would really appreciate a reconsideration in that fact.
We don't really have a lot of choice with that, Lisa. We really don't, because there was an existing stairwell that feeds at a whole end of the building.
And I don't think our regs even allow us to dictate where the door goes.
Yeah.
They don't,
So,
they don't. Kurt, you had another point you wanted to make?
yeah, you mentioned this pre-existing exterior lighting currently.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that didn't show up in the plat either, so that's why, you know, a little symbol thing is helpful.
Hey, I'm all for minimal lighting. I'll
yeah.
definitely work
Yeah.
with these
Yeah,
guys to
and-
minimize it, because I'm
Yeah.
not a big guy about a lot of night lighting anyway, you know? So I'm
Yeah,
happy to
my
minimize
friend, you're my
lighting as
friend.
much as possible, trust me.
So I would have to read through, Rob could probably go look for you, but I believe somewhere in our regs, when it comes to when there's a change of use, the lighting gets changed also, gets updated to, at the same time, full cutoff.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
pretty much everything. We take a site plan, whether it's a change of use or an expansion of an existing use.
Mhm.
Our policy, whether it's written or not, but ever since I've been chair, our policy has been to try to bring the site up to whatever the current set of regs requires.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah, I'm just,
that shouldn't be a problem.
yeah, I'm just
Oh,
making sure that they're aware of
Yeah,
this.
and we're not just doing it for you, it's our practice, if not our policy.
But I
Um,
understand their concerns.
Yeah,
And I went on the same side as them when it comes to lighting. I want to keep the lighting minimal down.
absolutely,
Absolutely minimal.
absolutely. Board members, any other questions, comments? Members of the public, questions or comments, anything else? Okay, I'm gonna close the public hearing. Entertain a motion to, discuss this. Somebody want to move?
Second.
Yeah.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Board members, your questions, comments?
Well, I almost want to apologize to the applicants for having to bring this issue up, but it's an important one because it will apply to other projects that we may see this year. So we have an R1 district. We've got a 1/4 acre lot size minimum lot size because we have town sewer. So my question is, what determines the max number of units you can put in this building? The reason I ask that is
It's your same old question.
yes, it's raised again, and here's an example. So if we rule one way on this, then that I think is saying that there is no limitation on the number of units that you can put in the building. And if we rule another way, then we're saying that that's limited to one interpretation of the zoning ordinance, which is 1 unit per quarter acre. So which is it? I guess is what I'm asking.
That's the $64,000 question,
Which we need to decide.
which we need to decide.
Over an acre.
Can we put that aside for a few minutes and deal with other issues that are specific to the site plan and do not involve maximum number of units?
According to the plat here, area of lot is 1.01 acres. So that would meet the fourth.
Okay, so I'm looking at the note right in the middle of the building, so that's not the size of.
That's the size of the building.
Building.
0.381 acres is not.
It's the building.
That's the building footprint.
Right.
Am I right,
Not the
Chris?
lot.
The lots are joined, so 10A and 10A 750A8 stamped right on top of the existing two-story building is the same lot call out, 10A-75A8. The two lots are considered one.
Yep.
You have 0.38 acres plus 0.63 acres for a total of 1.01 acres.
Okay,
Well, I'm very happy that
Right. We don't have to make this,
situated.
we don't have to make that decision tonight.
We can kick that down the road once again.
Yes, once again.
Yeah.
okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Eric?
No.
Have we got any conditions? I don't think so.
We do have a few.
Well, we've got the plat's gotta be fixed.
Well, hang on and let me write these down
Yeah.
so that I can include them. I'm gonna write them right on the top sheet here.
Yeah,
So we are adding symbols.
Yep.
Convert all lights, exterior lights.
so we need a complete light plan.
We can do that with light levels.
Right, that's what I
I
mean.
actually like to sit down with Dick and Lisa and just say,
Yeah.
you know, what can we do to accommodate? 'Cause I'm on the same page with them
Right.
but I want to meet the regulations, and
That's right.
requirements for light levels and
Yeah.
stuff as well.
I mean, we're, all our regulations require is full cutoff.
Of course.
And,
That's
you know, what the actual levels are is up to the owner.
I'd like to add additionally, I think it's important to address like Jay said, we want to address the concerns in window shades.
Yeah.
Window shading will be very, very important for this, almost more so than the full cutoff. I mean,
Okay.
full cutoff is a given, right?
Right.
But nowhere in the regs does it talk about window shades.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, with a higher building surrounded by lower lying
Mhm.
structures, it's an important consideration here.
Okay, I'm gonna phrase this as window treatments.
Great.
So that you'll have a little bit of flexibility
Okay.
between blinds and shades and whatever you guys wanna do. What else did we have for conditions?
Fire suppression.
What?
Yeah, numbers for Phil.
Yeah, just that they
Right.
meet whatever the fire department, building inspector, require. They meet their requirements.
And that would come in the form of a report, I would assume, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Water flow for sprinklers.
That's all going to be reflected in our building
Building.
permit.
The building inspectors.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and our work with Liam, which is ongoing.
Okay. Anything else that we talked about that I overlooked? Somebody want to make a motion?
Make a motion, we accept the application for Tardif Hall with the conditions stated.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're moving up on it.
Yes.
Yes. All but we'll be laying it out next week.
Yeah, generally I get the decisions out in about 2 weeks. Just so you know.
That's nothing to stop.
So where's the alphabet?
Sure.
I mean, when.
Hey, can we not have conversations while I go over this with Whitney, please? Add symbols to the plat. Convert all exterior light to full cutoff. Window treatments and a report of the water flow from the sprinkler system.
Thank you.
Report. Okey doke.
Bill's up.
Built up.
Phil's up.
This is
What are you
really,
here to talk about, Phil?
huh?
Like, new fire inspection.
Okay.
Did you folks get copies of what? This was brought to me by Lakeview and their consulting people on their water system. They've received a grant to upgrade their water system,
Mhm.
which the town has no involvement in, other than there are fire hydrants within Lakeview that at some point in time, I believe were probably approved by the planning board in the original Lakeview subdivision. So to kind of go back, and now that you're getting the sheet on it, if you look at that, and if you start where it says figure 1, that is the top of the hill, and we're going downhill towards the lake, just to give you the arrangement here. There is, so back up away from this a little bit, there's a fire pump across the street which feeds directly out of Mascoma Lake, which feeds into one fire hydrant, which is the lower one that's on the right-hand side of this page near the word legend. Okay, so then as you start coming up the hill, you're gonna see some dotted lines. There's a couple more fire hydrants. And then at the end of the line, there's a flushing hydrant. I was approached in asking, because if you start at the 50,000 gallon storage tank, you'll see 2 dotted lines.
Mhm.
One is a 6-inch domestic line and one is a 6-inch fire water line. And the way those come out of the tank, they are picking up bacteria hits because they come out of the tank into a T and then split. And if the fire hydrants aren't flushed like monthly, there's a pretty good potential of, the back T hits getting back into the system.
Stagnant water.
So it's stagnant water that's sitting there. So the question was proposed, does the fire department have an issue with one line coming down, still having hydrants on that line in the same general area as they exist right now with the 2 lines? And my answer is no. We have no issue with that whatsoever. We're getting the same volume of water. We're getting the ability for them to flush their water lines and take away the problem with, their bacteria. But I wanted to bring it before the board so that if anybody, and Rob has looked and I could find no information that tells us, yes, it was, no, it wasn't, but I just want to be here so that if the question is raised, it has been brought forward.
Due diligence.
Simple
It
as
was
that.
pre-zoning,
That was 89.
right?
So, but there were still approvals on it.
Right.
still, I don't think it's a topic that the board would
No.
want to weigh in on or have anything to say about it.
And now, not as far as the system, my only concern was that if there had been a decision back whenever by a town board, why these two lines, I'm looking for a board to have heard it, so that if somebody comes back and says, wow, you're just going around making changes without asking anyone. And that's the only reason why I'm here, Tim. I mean,
We
you've been in the water business. Are you seeing any reason that I'm missing why you would have,
I've seen such a
why you'd have two
ridiculous
lines?
setup, but,
Yeah.
no, I
Phil?
don't even want to think about it.
Well, the other thing that has happened, of course, Lakeview is on sewer now, so all the water lines have backflow preventers on them as well. So by combining, they're essentially doing nothing different than is done across the town, town-wide, and as any other water system does.
Phil, has this water line replacement project been done by, or been engineered?
Oh, yeah.
Or will be?
It is in the process of being final engineering. They have received, and I'm gonna say some federal or state money to upgrade to do the project.
I think the only thing that we can say as a board is that if it's been engineered and stamped, then it's beyond our purview.
Okay. I just wanted it to be.
Do you need a motion for that, or is that just acquiesce?
I wouldn't.
I don't think we need a motion. It's in the minutes, or it will be in the minutes.
Yeah, I have one suggestion, which is not a requirement, but if there's a site plan, having the new engineered system
Right.
appended to the site plan
Well,
would be a very good idea.
yes, yeah, we can do. I will make sure that you have copies, and that's taken care of.
Because that way, when somebody goes back to the site plan, they'll find
Right.
what's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the latest date versus 1989,
Right.
that there's probably no plans on.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Even if it was.
And the lines in the ground probably don't match what's on paper.
Well, actually, they do, because they have done some test digging, and the locations really do. But,
Oh, well.
okay, perfect.
All right, Phil,
Thank
thank you for
you.
coming in.
Even if it's not engineered worse thing, it still isn't hard to.
I know.
Right?
I know,
Yeah,
But,
it's
you know,
like, it's
but-
in the ground.
but as part of the subdivision, we
Oh, I
would
know.
want,
I know.
we would want that kind of stuff,
Right.
so.
A similar thing, just real quick, come up on the other side of the street where we were just talking about Tardiff Hall.
Right.
When that was approved, they required, the Enfield Planning Board required sprinklers in the single-family homes.
Right.
And subsequent to that, the fire marshal said, that's not your job, that's our
Right.
job.
Right,
And,
Exactly.
people have actually taken those sprinkler systems out of their houses because they're actually damaging their houses.
Mhm.
So, with the fire marshal's blessing, that's right.
Right.
Some, I'm just listening and reading, some of those systems have been taken out.
Yes. Years ago. These are single-family homes in Shaker.
Before you were the fire chief. 3 fire chiefs ago.
19 years.
well, you were the building inspector.
Kind of.
Why would they take them out? It's damaging the units.
Yeah, well,
They
they're all leaking,
They're all leaking.
damaging sheet rock and
Yeah, we have the same problem with the Lutheran.
40-year-old systems.
Yeah.
But, and then you're saying that the fire marshal has come in and given them, relinquished that to them?
Yes.
Well,
Fire
I hope
marshal.
they've got paperwork.
Yeah.
And I say that because of the
Right.
insurance companies.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Well, you remember Lebanon tried to do it too with fire sprinklers and
Oh,
single-family
yeah, no,
homes.
no, I understand from a certain
Fire
point
marshal said.
forward, but the ones that were behind, we'll have to talk about.
I'm saying.
Thank you.
Oops.
You never know
See,
what you're gonna
thanks.
find at a planning board meeting. Next, we have, select board report from Eric Russell.
I was not able to attend the last meeting, so I was out of town, but it is available online. I listened to it. It was, the primary thing was the public hearing around SB 2. I encourage everybody to listen to it. It was interesting. It was an SB 2 hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments for Eric? Legislative report. We're on vacation this week.
Excellent.
Previously, let's see, what's going on? There's a bill that will add solid waste management as a chapter to master plan. We heard testimony on that. I don't think there's gonna be a lot of objection. So we'll go to the full house for a vote and then proceed on to the Senate and the governor. I happen to think it's probably a good thing.
But he'll veto that.
You think so?
We'll see. Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
There's a whole group working on solid waste management in the state, landfills. Some of the testimony involved the moisture content of things that are put in the transfer station, which increases tipping fees for the towns in ways that consumers or homeowners can try to minimize the weight factor. We'll see where that goes. The bill that I spoke about at our last meeting having to do with planning boards and them being given quasi judicial authority, being able to take testimony under oath. That will likely die in our committee because we've been doing some research, and according to both New Hampshire courts and courts of other states, when we are doing a hearing that requires notice, we already are acting as a quasi judicial body. And the thought, at least from a couple of committee members that I've been talking with, is that we sort of need to codify the entire thing and have consistency between the planning board and the ZBA in terms of how we act when we're doing hearings. So that's about it from the legislature. Rob, your turn.
It's okay. I'll wait till the end of the meeting. We got our guys on, they've been waiting an hour.
Okay,
I'd like to get them going, so.
all right. Well, then in that case, we will switch to our pop grant discussions. Hi, Steve.
Hello,
Hi, Mark.
Mark's here too, yep.
Evening.
So I guess, Mr. Chair, how much time do you have for this agenda items, just so we can get the most out of the time we have?
We have as much time as you need. We're a little bit behind schedule, but I don't think that there would be a whole lot of objection to the board staying an extra 10 or 15 minutes. So
What time do you usually end?
normally we would quit at 8:30.
Okay,
We've been known to go beyond, so let's just do this until we're done.
sounds good, thank you. So Rob shared with you just a draft working document that we were hoping to touch on tonight with all of you. And I guess to be making the best use of time, if we jump to section 2 of that document, which is on page 4, what we wanted to do is just get your initial impressions on this comparison of some of the existing zoning standards on down the left column and some proposed zoning based on what we heard about the 5 target districts that we have been discussing with you the last 2 meetings. There are a few comments that we called out, especially things that we wanted to check in with you on. But I guess at that point, David, I would just open it up to any feedback first, starting on table 1. And you just spent a lot of time talking about the R1, so it's kind of timely.
Well, just a
Okay.
general comment, Steve. I really like the way in which you displayed this information. It made it really easy to go through. I just wanted to say how much I appreciated that.
Good, I'm glad it was
Great.
useful.
Yes. Could we jump back up to the list of zoning districts?
Yes.
Just slightly different than I think what we had suggested. So the Enfield Village District, I think there were two overlay districts that we were considering there. One was the Main Street commercial overlay, whatever. It exists now. I'm not sure we ever talked about whether we want to continue that or not. Essentially Main Street.
Central Business District on our current map.
Yeah. So, do we want to continue having that as part of the?
Well, it's combined now with the Route 4. Route 4 and Village are together now based on this.
Is that what we want to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was my understanding.
Yeah.
Last time, but that doesn't mean it's right.
Could we say we need to talk about that? Because I don't think we really discussed it.
Well, is this an appropriate time to have that discussion, Steve?
Absolutely. The earlier the better, so I'm glad Tim brought it up.
Okay.
And then there's also a historical overlay district that exists downtown too, that, well, should be part of that, right?
I mean, I think, Tim, we want to focus on the biggest items that need the most work, and then we can touch on the overlays later.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we need to talk about these districts right now. I'm just saying this list, we could just make sure it reflects what we know we eventually want to have.
Yes.
And then the three overlay districts that are listed at the tail end of this, are they really overlay districts or are they not districts distinct in and of themselves? I think they are.
Well, I think that the Shed Street district, as it were, would just fall in with the R1.
But the rural.
Well, no, that would fall in with the village district, right?
Well, it's a matter where you draw your lines.
Yeah.
It's a matter where you draw your lines.
Okay.
Where that's gonna
But sewer,
fall.
yeah.
So. That's sewer. That's what we're, yeah, that's what we're using is the village
But
district. is the sewer.
specifically with Tim's question around the three districts here, he's talking Eastman,
Right.
Shaker
Shaker
Village,
Village
and
and
Enfield
Enfield
Center.
Center.
Yeah.
And certainly for two of them, I think an overlay is the easy way because
Right.
Eastman and Shaker Village have their HOAs that handle it. And we really just want an overlay saying
Right.
the HOAs
Yeah,
there.
control
yeah,
this.
yeah.
We don't want to
The
try.
overlay is the HOA covenants, whatever.
Right, and we don't want to get into trying to redefine that, to define that within our zoning. That's my opinion.
Right.
I think,
Agreed.
Enfield Center might be a little different because it is,
Yeah, it's not a,
but
right.
Well, Enfield Center is currently R1.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anything, it would probably resemble what the village
Right.
has, except it obviously doesn't have municipal sewer. In any event, I guess it's a question to consultants. While we wouldn't want, for instance, Eastman and Shaker Village would both fall. Well, let's see, Shaker would fall on the Lake District ordinance or district, the Lake District. Right?
Yeah, it's an overlay.
Yeah, it's an overlay.
Well, no, just,
the reason it's an overlay is because they can't be less restrictive than the town is,
right,
but they can be more
more
restrictive.
restrictive. Right, so,
And so if we're happy with our entire lake
right,
district, they're more than welcome to be more restrictive within,
Right.
because everything there is already non-conforming.
right,
So we wouldn't want to go back to the situation where we have a group of houses that are all non-conforming and have to give exceptions for everything. Their exception is their HOA for being more restrictive.
right. So like for sake of the baseline, it's gonna be a Lake District requirement. That's right.
Yeah.
And then the covenants are what, fall under overlay. Right.
Right.
Well,
So they change the covenants, they change the overlay.
but you have several different HOAs in town. I don't, the only reason that Shaker Village was made distinct wasn't so much the HOA, because those exist around the town. It was that you've got the historical structures that are there, the museum, you've also got business, which we just saw tonight. And you've got residential uses. It's a fairly unique environment over there. And so I'm wondering, and we don't have to decide this tonight, is that whatever ordinance we come up with for that district, it may need to be really tailored to that group, not just saying that we're gonna let the HOA do what they want.
Well, I mean, that's where the Lake District, they fall under Lake District requirements.
Right.
That's where you start. And then because of the covenants and the HOA and the uniqueness, there's that separate page, which is the overlay requirements.
Okay.
It's sort of an addendum to.
Right, to the lake.
And I'll try to clarify, because I had a different understanding. Was that the reason we had an overlay was not because of the different uses and the history, but because of the lot sizes being so unique.
Well, they're not terribly unique from either way, north or south.
In which case we may not need an overlay.
Well, again, that wasn't the main
Yeah,
reason
no,
I
that's
suggested
fine.
we
Yeah.
have a district.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then in Eastman, not sure what about that, they would fall under our rural district, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to envision how we could overlay the rural district with the Eastman. So it seems like it would just be, unlike Shaker Village, we'd be really strictly looking to the HOA requirements for their village.
Well, we don't have to look into their requirements. Their requirements exist and they administer them.
Right. So it's a separate carve out of the rural district.
Right.
That
Yeah.
regulations
Overlay
touched
to-
on.
It's an overlay
to the rural
in which
district.
they can be more restrictive,
Right.
but not less restrictive.
Well, I think we want them to be less restricted. We don't want our, whatever we come up with for the rural district, let's say, I think there was a suggestion here later that they should have a 2-acre minimum lots. We don't want to do that.
No, they're more restricted.
They are more restrictive because they have their own, I mean, it's already subdivided. So everything there is grandfathered. And B, they have their own set of covenants in terms of setbacks and building heights and I don't know what else. So they are more restrictive than
Far more restricted.
than what would be the rural district.
Right.
So all we do is we define the Eastman boundary and we say that's the overlay area.
Might I suggest, Steve Schneider will be at our thing tomorrow night.
Yeah.
So we could certainly ask him and maybe suggest that Steve brings it up as conversation with the Eastman representatives.
Okay.
Then the Enfield Center District has this new Enfield Center Historic Overlay District that we need to make sure is.
Yeah, I mean, the
Yeah,
problem with
that
that is
would
it's
get
3
it.
buildings.
I don't want to fight.
It's not
that
Enfield Center, it's 3 buildings.
Right.
But we
Yeah.
don't leave it out.
No, we're not gonna
No,
leave it
we're
out.
not gonna.
So let's put it on the list.
Okay.
Yeah, Steve, are you aware? I don't know if you caught all that in the original. There was, the Heritage Commission came in last year.
Yeah.
Asked us to create this little overlay. It's 3 buildings. I'm not sure what the advantage was, but certainly
They
qualified
needed
for
it for
grants.
grants.
Yeah.
They're not even
Oh,
adjacent.
that's what it was.
Yeah.
No,
No, they're not.
it's a triangle.
So we are aware, I think in the interest of time, because July is approaching like a freight train, we wanted to focus on the big items that you asked us for. And if we have time, we'll help you with those little ones. But these other 5 are big. And the question like whether or not the existing village commercial business area will be combined with Route 4 is a big one. In the rural districts, there was desire by the planning board to take what remains of R1, R3, and R5 and put them together into one rural district. And we flagged a concern about some of the R1. So like some of those things I think would be good to talk about tonight because it may be a month before we see it again. So at least you'd have some time to be thinking about it and deciding how you want to direct us.
And when you mention, you know, we're gonna create a new R1 or not a new rural district, what does that mean? Are you gonna go to a 1 acre zone, a 2 acre, a 3, a 4, or 5? I mean. when we
Why is
looked
that our
over
only
notes,
choice? Is that our only choices to choose a minimum acreage per lot?
How else would you define it?
Road frontage.
Road frontage. Wide. It's wide open.
Wide open.
Well, are you saying
what will the land
no
support?
acreage requirement and, or, I mean, it's either no acreage requirement or a number.
Well, I think we gotta ask ourselves, what is it we're trying to accomplish in the rural district?
I think that you'll get different answers depending on who you ask.
Right.
Well, what did the
Good
master
start.
plan conclude?
I think the bigger question is, where is the rural district?
So far, what we've talked about is combining the R3 and the R5, which is essentially everything that's not the,
And some R1.
and there may be some R1.
There's a
I've
lot
got a
of
farm in
The
R1.
master plan would say, keep it rural. That's how they would define it.
Mhm.
Keep it rural.
A rural feel,
What does that mean?
Well, there you
visual landscape. You know, as we said at one of our previous meetings, it's not the lot size or the lot shape that people react to. It's how far apart the houses are spaced.
And can you see it from the road?
And if you can see them from the road, which would, I guess, imply setback. So, I mean, if we're trying to focus development on the more developed parts of town, I almost would be in favor of saying our rural district doesn't necessarily have to have an acreage requirement, but it would have to have requirements that promote the visual values and that make you have a feeling that you're out in the country.
I don't know how you can accomplish that without. Thank you. Some kind of minimum requirement. It's not even the minimum requirement.
Road frontage?
Well, I think that the town is used to the number, and I think it's easier to leave that as is and concentrate on some of these other things.
What I would like to see, I mean, I think I agree with you, Brad. What I would like to see though is, why can't you have a duplex with a 5 acre lot? Right now, you can't. There are 5. And if housing is our goal here, what is it to us if it's a duplex? I mean, some duplexes I see are gorgeous. You know, even a 4-plex, they ask us that question. Steve's posed that to us in that little queue there.
We got a 4-plex proposed here.
To include single family duplex, 4-plex. I mean,
Right.
you got 20 acres.
Well,
Why not?
my note is 4-plex is no. The structure is just too big. It doesn't look like a rural structure.
But if you
You're not
can't
gonna-
see it from the road, do we care?
How do you know that?
I don't know.
I'll go one step further. Why do we care?
That's right. Why-
Because it's maintaining the rural character. You have a 4-plex apartment complex sitting out there on Methodist Road or the end of Lock Haven. It just looks weird. It doesn't look like it's rural. I mean, that's it. I mean, how do you define rural? It's just. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm not sure I want to. Right, define rural. You know, I just feel a 2. I'm sorry, but 2-family. My rural and your rural's a different rural. Yeah. And that's. And a 4-plex out on Lock Haven Road,
We gotta
I don't have a
stay-
problem with.
Yes, we gotta stay focused on affordable housing.
Right.
So we gotta give up some aesthetics to get affordable housing in this town.
Can I point out something on there? I think that it's an issue that's been nagging me, and that's, you guys are not gonna be able to see this, but, over here on Palmer Road.
Yeah.
I wasn't here when this was subdivided, but I think that was probably post zoning. And very likely is in compliance with our current zoning.
Yes.
So you'll note, you've got these long skinny lots, so I checked, and these are each at least 5 acres.
Right.
Now, what is it about that, really would have been better if the property owner had some different options to exercise? And I think it would be that, if you'd have the same number of houses on the road, they probably have a road frontage that they had to comply with.
Yep.
Everything behind, say 500 feet behind the house or whatever, is pretty much kind of a useless lot.
It's not buildable.
They can't manage any sort of timber stand.
No.
Because you've got 8 different property owners that, you know, it's not good for wildlife habitat. Because this owner may do something back here that interrupts that sort of thing, and so forth. So and then I look at these larger lots that show up here. And is it that what we really want is for any sort of development on here to occur near the road, clustered, and that the majority of the land either stay open or stay wooded, whatever it may be, but it stay contiguous, intact. And particularly when it is adjacent to another large parcel. So I would like to see our rural zoning restrictions or requirements enable that sort of thing, and maybe even actually require it.
Mark and Steve, what are other communities doing?
I mean,
Go ahead.
I think it's easy to accomplish what Tim was just talking about if it's a larger subdivision and you're requiring conservation subdivision as the approach. It's if it's smaller development on existing lots or smaller, you know, someone does a lot line adjustment or splits a lot, then you're getting this incremental pattern that's maybe more suburban over time. I don't know, Mark, if you have other thoughts.
No, I mean, I agree. I mean, in Hollis has mandatory cluster open space development for anything 5 lots or greater. So if you do a 6 lot subdivision, you have to do basically a cluster development. And you know, there's people that criticize that because the lots, instead of being 2 acres, are an acre or a little less. So they're all crowded together, but obviously there's a lot of open space associated with it. So, you know, I think it's beauty's in the eye of the beholder, you know. I mean, I think this, from a landowner's perspective, having some sort of firm idea of, I want to subdivide, what do I need to do? And if it's a set of criteria that's like mushy, and they have to come to the board and get a consensus on, that's gonna, I think, gonna drive the board crazy. It's always best to try to be as definitive as possible. It also takes away others, including lawyers' ability to manipulate things.
And I guess I would just add, you don't need to decide on the acreage tonight. Like, we don't need to know it tonight. But over the course of the next couple meetings, the more we can identify where you have consensus on acreage or the uses or the purpose, district purpose statement, we can check those things off. That's helpful. They can remain draft all the way till July. But I guess maybe, are there other things about this new rural district that others would like to touch on while we're thinking about all this?
Well, I tend to agree with Dan that to say simply the word residential is permitted in the rural district is as far as we need to go. Whether that turns out to be a 20-unit apartment building in a barn or a duplex or a single-family home, I personally do not have a concern. I think the land in most cases is gonna probably limit what can be done because the septic system requirements.
I think you're right. I think I agree with you, but I think many of the townspeople will not.
Well, we'll find that out tomorrow night. maybe.
Yep, maybe.
We can find it out a little bit tomorrow night. We can definitely find it out when you do the public forum with the master plan folks. So at late April, early May, whenever that happens, it's a chance to test the waters.
Yeah,
I gotta run out for a minute. Did you mention anything about the sawmill bit? My note is like, no, cut that, because people that move to a rural area, they move there for a reason versus a village area. And a sawmill is gonna be a 24/7, well, not 24/7, but a 5-day, 6-day a week, very loud logging operation. And when you have a logging operation that happens for 2 or 3 weeks, neighbors are upset. To have a constant sawmill going right next to you, or within earshot, which is pretty much a pretty good radius,
Yeah.
they're gonna be really upset with us. That's why I think it should be special exception, because there's probably
But it
laws
is.
that it's appropriate and it's
It
not.
is listed as special exception.
So, yeah.
The
I think
neighbors
it should be
can weigh in.
restricted to the commercial industrial areas. As a commercial sawmill, I mean, not the homeowners coming in with a portable sawmill, cut a bunch of boards, build a barn.
That's
A
what I thought.
commercial sawmill is gonna be there for forever.
Control. Well, you may have a point there. There is, the sawmill does not have to be located in any particular spot in town. So if it was limited to the commercial business district, that's where it's gonna go.
They'd want it there anyways because of the transportation.
Right, road posting. that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of the sawmills, like on Route 4, there's a new one there.
Yeah.
Switch Road, and that probably just materialized because he owned the land. You know, had they had zoning, they might have directed him somewhere else, although he's in probably a very good
He's in
spot.
probably the best spot in town to have.
Right. I mean, it was on
That's
Route
right.
4 and Enfield, it was,
State highway.
right, it's right. I mean, that would,
Yeah.
that's, to me, it's that type of sawmill. When it's a commercial
Becomes
sawmill,
commercial. okay.
it should be in the commercial zone.
So when you talk about the commercial zone, the commercial industrial district out by 89,
Well, that's definitely industrial, yeah, but I believe the village should be village, Route 4 should be more intense commercial.
But not sawmills on it.
Well, I could do sawmills under. Route
There
4.
could be, you've got even more people living next door.
Right.
That's not
There's
gonna
more
hurt.
commercial on Route 4, but well, where do you split Route 4? I mean, there's the Lebanon side and there's the Canaan side of Route 4.
Well, either way, you got more houses than you would out in the rural area if the sawmill was to be
Right.
posted on Lock Haven Road somewhere.
Nothing Baltic on.
Well, let's see what people,
Thank you.
stakeholders have to say and community members have to say. I don't think we need to get down to this level of detail tonight because of the amount of time that we.
Yeah, we gotta move.
We gotta move.
Back to the rural discussion, I would throw out as the guy who answers the phone when people call. What I'm starting to see more of, and I'm sure you guys would agree with this, is that people want to live multi-generational cohabitation. You know, it's, she's got it. It's grandma and grandpa could sell their house and come and help you renovate your house.
Right.
You can build a unit for them.
I spent
And
4
even-
months a year in Florida.
Yeah, and even the kids, as they start to
That's right.
come up to adulthood.
Yeah.
You might have 3 generations living together. And I think that's being forced upon us, not necessarily by choice, but by
Of the
requirement of the costs.
Economy.
Young people these days are not gonna be able to afford anything and without their help of their parents or
Either
their
of their
grandparents. So I see that as a big requirement, and that's why I would love to open it up to duplexes or triplexes, and maybe if you don't like quadplexes or fourplexes. But I think that, I mean, I have friends that actually have beautiful multi-unit housing, old farmhouses that have been
Yep.
added onto with beautiful architectural style. Certainly, there's people that would do it tacky, but we can't regulate class and style,
No.
but you give them that flexibility for, multi-generational cohabitation, I think is absolutely gonna be essential for the future of Enfield and for the future of this whole region.
Yeah, and you have the building height limitation. Will hopefully knock down some of the giant kind of things that might be proposed.
Yep.
I would concur with that statement, Rob, because I see that myself in my travels,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing. And personally, we're looking to do it ourselves with my, my son and my daughter, so it's, you know, it's happening. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
So,
can I ask
Nice.
about the commercial industrial district up 89? The one question we had on that area was, would you allow multifamily out there, or should that not be considered?
That's up to the people buying. If they want to live there. What do we
I'd
care?
allow it.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
I'm fine.
Well, only because the true commercial part of that is only to the right, and it's 250 yards long total. Oh,
to
If
me,
you go
it's-
to the left, as
Oh,
if
to
you're
me,
going
it's,
to.
it's, more school buses issue.
Not on that road, it's not a school bus issue.
Well, they have to get there. I mean, I don't know where the school bus routes are, so I don't know if there's currently
Yeah, because of Methodist Hill, there's already a bus.
There's
going.
already buses.
buses out there.
However, you're correct. They're like off of the next
15.
exit 15.
There's a duplex there.
There is some, but that'd be a place where, from a school perspective, you would not want more housing.
Are we required to get a school bus there?
Yes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
State law.
Yeah, so if we allow housing and there's kids. Well, but if there's one house there already, then it
Well,
doesn't matter.
No, we can look at what Hanover did. Hanover has zoned a big part of their town so that you can't,
Right.
and I don't know all the details of how they do it, but so that you can't live there year round with kids.
Mhm.
And that's exactly what they
Right.
did.
That's why.
Well, I don't think. And that's one of the reasons why they
No,
did.
I'm not. No, well, no, exit 15 might be a place where we want to zone it in a way that you're not at, that's the one sort of part of down at exit 16, actually, that little spot too, where we may not want to have housing because it may be too challenging to get services.
Right, the exit where you can't turn around and go back the other way.
The North Grantham one.
But like
Yeah, is that the one
but
that
the
is, yeah.
exit 16 one, there is a bus that already goes
Right.
out Methodist Hill Road. There's already housing developments on
Right,
Methodist Hill
right, I
Road.
understand that,
That's not
but
adding.
it's
you
the
know.
89 exits like you're talking
Yeah.
about, that I'm concerned about.
You'd be open to considering that. Comment on Lake Shore. I don't see a criteria for solar arrays in Lake Shore. Shouldn't
What
that
would you
be in
like-
every,
What would you like to see it as a use?
yeah, as a use,
Yeah, allowed use.
allowed use.
And
Depends
at
on the
what, yeah, we can add that. At what scale?
Well, rooftop for sure.
I mean, I don't know that you want to regulate rooftop solar arrays anyway in your zoning table. You think you should allow them everywhere?
Right,
Yes,
yes,
to show that
for
everywhere.
residential use.
We noticed that, I mean, in the residential one, we kept the solar use in there because it was roof, ground mounted, and community net metered. That's a much bigger thing than a rooftop one in the Lake Shore.
I'd keep them there.
So maybe
I
we
think
should
that-
differentiate.
No, if they can get it
Right.
permitted on a lakeshore lot, why wouldn't we allow it?
Yes,
Right. Should be an allowed use in all zones.
all zones, yes.
I'm agreeing with you. At a single family home scale, rooftop or ground mounted should be allowed everywhere, but do you need it in the zoning? It's
No,
not.
you
a
don't,
use.
you don't need it in the zoning. I don't think.
Yeah, he's making a point, it's not a use, it's
It's not a use.
Right.
I mean, if it's a larger scale commercial or community solar, then that's a use.
But that should be allowed anywhere that they can get a permit for.
What's a large scale commercial? How do you define that?
5 meg.
Well, that's a word.
I could show you a
Actually,
1 megawatt unit that we have a lot of trouble with the neighbors on.
Right,
So I,
the state allows 5 now.
I agree with you, Eric. I don't really see a need to put a limitation on it.
Right. The state's putting a limitation at 5 megs, so.
And the value of lakeshore property is gonna put another limit on what people do.
Exactly.
On a practical level.
Right.
Right.
And back to Lakeshore, our intent was not to say you shouldn't have solar on houses or in the yards. It was really more an oversight just because we weren't interpreting it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the uses for all districts, you have the wireless towers. I don't know what the feds regs are for how much we can say no to a wireless tower. I mean, we can do some limitations on site fall lines and height limits within reasons. But they always come in with their engineers and say it has to be this height. So I don't know if we can restrict certain areas that they cannot go, or if that's even that's off limits.
We kept it in because you specifically have a wireless tower, Article 8.
Yeah.
So because we're so focused on housing, we didn't want to get into rewriting your wireless tower ordinance. So we kept it
Oh,
in
no,
as
I
a use.
understand, but it's just a matter of where, I don't know if you know, can we even say no wireless towers in X district?
I don't think so. No.
The wireless statute's pretty, it was written by the wireless industry. It's pretty,
Wild West. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's what I thought, yeah.
So how about wind turbines?
Well, that's what I wanted to bring up, because I'd like to see them, but we don't like to see them.
Mhm.
We like to see their energy, but we don't like to see what they look like.
But that's getting off the scope.
I
of
love looking at them.
Yeah, that's going off on a tangent.
What I'm saying is, do you say you can have them? As an allowed use,
Special exception.
special exception,
Some places it's appropriate, some other places probably not.
probably is in the conservation district.
I would also like to see agriculture and forestry moved into every district as an allowable use.
So actually, Mark raised this question. Because they are allowable uses by state law, do we have to list them as a use? Like, we can't stop anyone from agricultural or forestry operation.
Anywhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I think we leave it, make it simple.
Make it simple.
We have had special exceptions there though for certain
Yeah.
agricultural use,
Yeah,
like horses. I mean,
and pigs.
if you have a quarter of an acre, probably not a good place for horses. Pigs, same deal. Cows.
Slaughterhouse.
Well, you're getting into,
That's agriculture. That's just the tail end of it.
Yeah, I mean,
So are you saying there's a state law that says I can run some cattle out there and you can't do anything about it?
Not as I've interpreted Enfield, because we've actually had a few people. We had somebody with goats on Maple Street. They had to get rid of their goats. You probably remember that. It was not an appropriate place for goats. I mean,
The
plants.
statute, I mean, we're a pro-agricultural state. The statute's fairly clear with that. But it does allow the board and the community to regulate agricultural uses. But it's a very high bar to prohibit them. You can reasonably regulate them, especially if you're, going from 3 pigs to 3,000 pigs. So you do have the ability to regulate reasonably. Reasonably means, and they even get into this in the statute, not prohibiting. So you do have the power to regulate, but it has to be reasonable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess back to, I think it was Phil's comment about including them in all districts. If you
Yeah, I
want
don't think you need to.
Well, if it's gonna be regulated by the town, then it needs to be in all districts. And then the town regulates but down from that. Because in my mind, agriculture means I can run some cattle in my pasture in an R1 district. But if it's not in there at all, then the town has nothing to hang their regulation on because it's not in there.
Well, do they? I mean, there's the health officer Any other ordinances that the town might propose to? This is, if you're gonna do an agricultural operation with, pigs, this is how you have to do. That's not something we're gonna write.
Yeah, it's gonna be, the New Hampshire Department of Agriculture has best practices.
Right.
But again, I think traditionally we've regulated it in the R1. Because you have lots that are so small, it sometimes is very inappropriate. I mean, I'm a farmer. I don't think you should have a herd of cattle on quarter acre. Just not appropriate, but.
I mean, you
Cool
could have
mindset.
something at the very beginning of the ordinance that speaks to it instead of mentioning it in every single district as a use category. You could have a paragraph that basically says agricultural uses are allowed in all districts. And if you want to put an exception in there, except, blah, 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 and then be done with it.
Yeah. Okay,
Special
That's good.
exception in the Enfield Village District.
yeah,
Yeah, there may be a couple others we want to add to that, but yeah,
yeah,
that seems
okay.
like that would do it.
Okay with that.
Do we want to have sawmills and commercial recreation in the Lakeshore districts as a special exception?
Now, we took the sawmills out. Believe me.
Yeah, commercial recreation.
Commercials.
What is commercial recreation water-based?
Renting of boats,
Mascoma Sailing Club,
Mascoma Sailing Club,
Campground.
yeah.
Yeah,
boys camp.
yeah,
girls camp.
whenever. Yeah,
Water
whenever it's a
recreation.
when it's a business where you're charging fees. And it can be, just expand up from there. Couple of people in.
How are lake residents going to
Not well.
react to a boat rental
Nope.
operation?
Not gonna like it.
All those
They
eight.
will not, they will not support it at all,
I didn't think so.
not for a second. That doesn't mean you can't get it passed, but they will not support it for a second because of the yahoos.
Mhm.
It's not the 90% of responsible people that would rent a boat. It's the other
It's the
10%
10%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that you cannot control.
and
Well, I mean, we've got Gray's Marine.
Right.
Maybe that's the only one we have, so.
Not on the water,
Is he not on the water? I didn't know.
not on the water.
nope. You're on
There are no
4A.
marinas on the water in either lake.
So it sounds like drop that from special exceptions.
I think so.
I think so, and, maybe we call it, summer camps or campgrounds. That would, I think, be more acceptable.
I don't want to drop it.
Yeah, I don't see any reason to limit people's options. I mean, I don't think anyone's gonna choose to do it, but I don't see a reason to limit their options.
It won't pass.
Let's
You could
see
use-
what the general
you could use
public
the-
has to say.
Yeah, you could use the forum. We can give people little stickers where they can tell us if we're crazy.
Right.
And,
Mhm.
you might be
People
right.
that on the lake that wanna try a boat up at the dock,
They
they're
definitely
gonna
want
be
it.
for it,
Right?
Yeah.
They can pay a share of my taxes.
yeah. Or the boathouse could pay a share. Boat business.
All right, other thoughts, this is your first pass of this, which we appreciate. I know it's a lot.
Do we need to define more on the height restriction, or is that a detail for later?
It's a detail we should definitely do later, but we should
Okay.
do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this list, I'm looking at, let's see, where am I? I think I'm in the rural special exception list, rural district special exception.
What page are you on?
Oh,
Page
on
five.
page 5.
Page 5.
5.
So our existing ordinance has the R1, R3, and R5 listed. Will currently say. This is a pretty small list on the right, the new list. Are we saying that all those things on the left can happen? They're just not going to be special exceptions. So they're going to be in the, what are we saying there?
So if any of those things on the left fall under page 4, under the rural district permitted uses of residential home occupations, the large solar arrays, then you're good. If they're not listed under rural special exception, then they're gone. Another option would be to use a conditional use permit for any use that can meet the conditions. I mean, you could keep it wide open, which is how some form-based codes work. They list a very narrow few set of things, residential, commercial, and other uses that can meet the conditions of the conditional use permit. Because you can't anticipate every use. That would be like I don't know, Mark, do you have any issues with that? Like as far as keeping the door open if they could meet the conditional use permit?
Well, I mean, I found it interesting that there was so many uses allowed in the rural zone, even the R1 zone, that are semi commercial related. I mean, if that's the texture of the community, and if that's something that you want to be able to continue to allow people to do, then, you know, we need to pull them over.
Right.
Well, I'm looking at those lists and I don't see a lot there that, why wouldn't we allow that to be happening in the rural district? Date, bus stop shelter, professional offices, recreational facilities, daycare, I mean, you know, all those, I don't know why they're special exceptions now.
So are those home occupations though? Are you living on site and working and it falls under home occupation with the daycare or professional office, or are they separate? I'm going to go build an architecture office and not live there.
We probably don't have
They're
a lot
not
of
home occupations, the way I read that list. I mean, these are separate businesses. I mean, you can have a daycare center, professional office, recreation, artisan workshop. I mean, those are separate. A restaurant in the R1 by special exception now.
Part of the problem with our current zoning is R1 covered the village area, what we now want to call village area. So that was why they were listed there, even though the R1 district goes further out into what now is going to be more rural districts. Under the existing regs, it was the village area and where these things would be normal. So that's why they got listed as special exception.
Okay.
So
Well, that makes
I mean,
sense in the R1. Yeah. Yep. That helps.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But now that the rural district is this bigger area, just, I guess, think about if you want it to be more than just residential, which is, I think, part of what you were asking, Mark. And the purpose statement we wrote here is based on what we read in the master plan, that it's primarily